Are you taking advantage of the Civil War Pension Index over on Findmypast? And did you know it doesn't just have Civil War pensioners? Today, we're going to help you find the records and learn more about them. Since the early days of the United States, Congress has established pension programs to provide compensation to veterans of different military conflicts. In 1792, Congress passed a pension to provide compensation for disabled veterans of the American Revolution. By 1818, surviving veterans were able to receive some compensation. By 1862, Congress passed an act to provide compensation for disabled veterans or to provide money to widows and dependent children who lost their loved ones in the service of the Union Army. Now, Findmypast has this collection available for you to research through a subscription, but I also want you to know a couple of things before we keep going, and this threw me for a loop when I first started. The Civil War pension is a little bit of a misnomer, meaning there are other wars included in this pension file, and that's why the range for the Civil War pension files index is from 1861 to 1934. So be sure that you're also coming to this collection if you have individuals who may have served in the Indian Wars, the World War I. What you will not find in this collection is this Civil War pension files for the Confederate Army, just the Union Army. The Confederate pensions will be found in the state archives for states formerly part of the Confederacy. Be sure you check out the show notes for this video because there will be some links to direct you to those resources. Now, before we dive into the actual documents, I want to give you a little bit of historical nuggets. Compensation for pensions all depended on rank and the severity of the disability. So a totally disabled private could receive about $8 a month in compensation. Now that equates to about $160 a month, which has a purchasing power in 2020 about $1,000 to $1,500 a month. So for farmers who are disabled who serve their country, this what came in handy to help them provide for their families. So over on Findmypast, to access the Civil War Pension Index, you need to first click on Search and then go to All Record Sets. Now this was formerly called the A to Z collections, the A to Z record sets, but now it's just all record sets. Now, to access the Civil War records, type in Civil War, and then you will get 23 record sets. Now, I highly encourage you to explore these record sets as well. Some of them are specific to a state and medals of honor. That would be great. We want to focus on the pension file, and if you ever want to ensure that you get the correct pension file, then type in pension in the search bar and you'll be able to access it right there. Click on that record, and now you have several options. I'm just going to type in one surname, and I'm going to ignore the date, and I'm going to type in Ohio. There's one result. Now, this record is kind of fun because it says first names Townsend or Jackson, Jackson or Townsend. I'm going to look at the index to the image, and here I could see, not entirely sure whether Townsend or Jackson is the first name or the last name, but this pension was started in 1880 and the beneficiaries was named Hannah Jackson in Ohio. That's about all that you're going to find on this record. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually go in and view the image. Now that we're here, we can see some of the reasons why the name was a little bit confusing. It appears that Jackson Townsend often is known as Townsend Jackson, and that's why both names are here. This is a fantastic field for the known names as well as any other also known as names that may appear. Then you will see the list of dependents. This is Hannah Jackson, and then occasionally you'll see the minor children also listed here. Do not presume there are not any additional individuals if they are not included on this record. You will always want to go to the original documentation. Now, one of the identifying pieces of information for your ancestors to differentiate them from other individuals that served in this military is their unit. Now, C12, USC Infantry. This is great because what this is really saying, if I go over to the National Park Service, their Soldiers and Sailors database, I actually found out that this is the 12th Regiment United States Colored Infantry. So this is an African American soldier serving in the military. So here is his name in that database. So we can match it up. I'll be sure to put a link to this database in the description below so that you can find out. So that was really great. We've got the right gentleman, and now I have his unit. But how am I going to get his pension file? Well, that is when this information comes in. So notice I have invalid. That invalid applies to the veteran. He is disabled or somehow incapacitated, and he filed his pension on the 30th May 1880. Now, here is his application number. He died sometime before April 20th, 1900, and his widow filed a widow's pension petition, and here are her numbers. Occasionally, you're going to see an attorney's information as well as some other remarks. Make sure that you are recording all of the information. This is where the widow filed the petition, but that doesn't mean that is where they are from. So be very careful when you put in the state, because your ancestors might be in places you hadn't thought of. Now, I highly recommend that you capture the number for the pension file and then go obtain a copy of the full case. Let me share with you just a couple of things that might be in the documents. Where you're going to have an application, a petition by the veteran for funding. They're going to articulate where they served, when they served, and so on. There will be a validation statement coming from the War Department say, yes, they actually served in this unit. Then you'll have a personal history questionnaire and a family questionnaire, and the two of those put you in better understanding of relationships, birth dates for children, marriage dates of the spouse. So if you're lacking birth, marriage, and death dates, it could be in the pension file, which is why these are so great. You'll also have affidavits from fellow unit members, so they can talk to the War Department about the individual service, and they actually saw them serving, and so they need to receive this compensation. Friends and neighbors will attest to the living conditions of the veteran, as well as widows following the death of their qualified veteran. And then finally, where applicable, medical personnel will provide affidavits of the condition of that soldier when they got injured during the war, and then maybe a physician who cares for the soldier many years after the war. It's chock full of great information. And sometimes marriage certificates and copies of the family Bible will be in the pension files. So you want to track these down. If you are not on our newsletter, you are not being informed of when we are releasing new videos. We release a lot. And when we are releasing new blog posts, we have a lot. So make sure you sign up for our newsletter so you never miss another episode or article. So now we're going to look for a more modern war pensioner, because remember I said it's not just the Civil War pension. So we're going to leave the name blank and we're just going to have fun. 1924 is when I want them to begin filing for a petition. That means after the World War I. and before the last date in this record. And I'm going to type in Virginia, and I'm going to go ahead and see there's 981 results. So this is the state they're living in when they filed a petition, not where they are actually from. So be very careful with that. So I'm going to go ahead and look at Richard A. Alexander in Virginia. Once again, we have the index to get a quick sense of what's going on. It's not very helpful, but if you find this card applies to your ancestors, you can click add to tree and follow the process of attaching a record to your tree. You can print it off as well. But we're going to go ahead and view the image. And once again, even though the first one I showed you was from 1880, and this one was actually being filed in 1926, the record is pretty much the same. So Richard A. Alexander, no minor or widow is listed. We have the unit that he served in and when he made the filing and the application number and where he was when he filed it. So he did serve in Virginia infantry and is filing from Virginia. So he's probably from Virginia. But don't always make that assumption. And then there's some other remarks that you want to record. Now, once you have that file number, the next thing you want to do is to obtain the full document. Don't just start at that index because it really didn't give you that much information. Well, the first thing you could do is you can get the file number and then go to the National Archives in Washington, D.C. and access the files as soon as that place is open to the public. You can also place an order with the NARA and for a fee, and if you're willing to wait lots of months, then you can also obtain it that way. There's two other ways that you can access the file. One of them is Fold 3 is beginning to digitize and make these records available online. At the time of this recording, the people I was looking for, I could not find them in Fold 3. So then the last alternative is to consider hiring somebody to go do a lookup. I have found that they can do it in a fraction of the time that you would wait for the National Archives to digitize your image. And sometimes you can get it for much cheaper. So consider using our friends over at Legacy Tree Genealogists or finding someone from the Association of Professional Genealogists who do lookups when the archives are open. So be sure to explore the military veterans that you have in your family tree using Findmypast as your gateway to the actual record cases. If you want more tips and tricks on how to use Findmypast, be sure to check out this playlist up here. And if you're ready for something else, try this playlist right here. So check out all of these resources on